What is it to fail spiritually? Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. The first passage is from the Gospel of St. Matthew, chapter 25. Jesus tells the parable of the 10 virgins, 5 of them wise and 5 foolish. They await their bridegroom, the Christ consciousness. The wise virgins keep the oil in their lamps, symbolic of their devotion, lit through the night. The foolish virgins place no oil in their lamps. These foolish ones are like the average devotee going through the motions of outer ritual, but keeping no fire of love burning in the heart. When the bridegroom's coming is announced, the foolish virgins realize their mistake and hasten out to purchase oil. During their absence, the Christ consciousness comes and embraces those who have been awaiting him with devotion. The foolish ones, by their lackluster devotion, are not accepted by him. Watch therefore, Jesus told his listeners, for you know neither the day nor the hour wherein the Son of Man cometh. In Autobiography of a Yogi, Paramahansa Yogananda describes the foolish virgin consciousness he encountered in the Mahamandal hermitage he stayed in as a young man in Benares. I was pleased, he wrote, that my new home possessed an attic where I managed to spend the dawn and morning hours. The ashram members, knowing little of meditation practices, thought I should employ my whole time in organizational duties. They gave me praise for my afternoon work in their office. Don't try to catch God so soon. This ridicule accompanied one of my early departures towards the attic. Later, during meditation, I felt lifted as though bodily to a sphere uncircumscribed. Thy Master cometh today. A divine womanly voice came from everywhere and nowhere. This supernal experience was pierced by a shout from a definite locale. A young priest nicknamed Habu was calling me down from the downstairs kitchen. Mukunda, enough of meditation. You are needed for an errand. The Divine Mother's words were not spoken for the benefit of that priest, the foolish virgin, but for Mukunda, the wise virgin. For this was the day his Guru Sri Yukteswar came to him. Grieve not, friends, if you feel that you have been foolish. No error is forever. Some day, if you keep your lamp lit now, your opportunity will come. In Bhagavad Gita, the 6th chapter, Krishna promises every devotee, Arjuna, none who works for self-redemption will ever meet an evil destiny. Spiritual failure, though a deep disappointment, is always temporary. Eternal hellfire is but a projection of vindicativeness in the human mind. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om.
This one is entitled, Teach Me to Drown in Thy Light and Live. And it says, inspired by a Hindu song. I come to Thee with the song of my smiles. Whatever treasures have lain in the secrecy of my soul, I bring eagerly to Thee. I bring Thee all the honey from the hive of my heart. All that was ever mine is now Thine alone. The sunlight of this world, shining upon my eager hopes and brief, fickle fulfillments, burned me repeatedly with dissatisfaction. Now I will quench my thirst forever in Thy radiant waters. The taper of my aspiration toward happiness will burst aflame with Thy coming into a conflagration of bliss. In Thy vast enchanting sea of light, I will swim joyfully forever. Teach me to drown in Thee and live, rather than live in a mirage paradise of earthliness and die. This topic or this question, what is it to fail spiritually, I'm wondering if it's partly placed at the end of the year because it's a natural time when we begin to think of the new year and New Year's resolutions and what we would like to resolve to change, to have different next year. And of course, there's always a little bit of logic that comes to me whenever we do that, because we can welcome 2023, but then again, we welcomed 2022 and also 2021 and 2020. I mean, little did we know. We just sort of, hi, I just coughed. Does anyone care? No. Wait 3 months. Everyone will run in panic. But on the other hand, not to take a cynical view, I don't mean it that way, but to say that we should always resolve that this next period of time is a new chapter for me. And it can be. I mean, first of all, when you haven't lived long enough, you haven't seen that there are definite periods of life that transition. In other words, you don't have enough data yet. But once you've lived long enough and gone through enough major disruptions, or some things were going really badly and then they ended, you learn the truth of it, that karma ends. And so unfortunately, it means good karma ends, bad karma ends. But generally, if you're on the spiritual path, you have enough good karma to keep you going, so you don't have to worry about that. But the thing is that we go through chapters, we go through periods. The point is, sometimes over which we have no control. Everybody can act very clever when everything is going well for them, as if it is by their own brilliance that things happen. And then all you need is one little disaster and then realize, wow, I don't have the kind of power that I thought. There was a man who was the father of one of the devotees at Ananda, and he was a very successful business executive in a major company in India, and he knew it. And so he had this general attitude of just, I've said anything and you should listen and obey and you may bask in the brilliance of my wisdom and success. In fact, it was some of you have heard the story, that one man challengingly said to Swami Kriyananda, "Do you think I need a guru?" And Swamiji said, "No, you don't need a guru. Unless you want God, then you need a guru." Swamiji added in telling that story, "Until then, go on being your own guru." So many people are their own guru. What does that mean? It means they are the ones they listen to. On the one hand, it's good. The song we just sang, "Truth Can Never Die," is all about standing strong, but standing in the truth, not standing in opinion. And we should always care and ask ourselves, what is true? Swamiji himself said that in a meeting once with people. He said, "Listen, I'm interested in the truth. I'm not interested in opinions." And some of the people got very offended. Just, but you're saying you don't care what we think? And he said, "I'm not even interested in my own opinions." He said, all that matters is what is the truth of the situation, not just what we think, uninformed opinions. Anyway, I'm not sure they grasped the point. But the thing is that this man was very confident in his success. And then unfortunately, his wife became very ill. Leaping to the end, it has a happy ending, so don't worry. So I've been told, sometimes I like to add a little drama and suspense, and I've been told by some listeners, cut it out. Tell us the happy ending so we can relax and not just be on the edge of our seat. So she recovered, but it was very dire at one point. I think there was a medication error. Anyway, it was pretty horrific. I won't, describe what she went through, but it was pretty bad. And he was completely helpless. There was nothing he could do about it. And he said, I can throw all the money that I have at this problem. I can't change it. The doctor said, there's nothing more we can do. We just have to wait and see. And his daughter put out a prayer request and said, "Please, if you could pray for my mother." And so we were all praying, and it was easy for us to pray, just of course generally, but also out of our love for this Guru Bai, and therefore by extension her mother and her father. We had compassion for him. I mean, of course, it was terrifying. And she did recover. And in fact, she recovered with almost no scars, which the doctor said was impossible. Everything about her recovery, they said, was impossible. Without infection, it was a whole big thing. She just made it. And then this man changed his attitude for a time. He changed his attitude to say, oh my gosh, there is a power greater than even mine. And so, as I said, for a time. And so the thing is that we can easily feel that everything is fine and it's all to our credit, but it's really the weather working in our favor. And so the deal is in life that we have to attune ourselves to the way things are going. And we should ask God for help always. We should say, this is the positive direction I want to go in. I don't mean we should just blow wherever the wind blows us. But I mean that we need to understand that it's by God's power that everything happens. And if something happens that's disappointing, well, then perhaps that is God trying to help us. I mean, in fact, it's always God trying to help us, but trying to teach us something, but not necessarily giving us what we want. Honestly, when we don't get what we want, we have to say, well, I didn't get what I thought I wanted. Because Divine Mother will always give us what we need. And sometimes she teaches us. And think about it. Would you rather have the strength that can be happy when everything is going well? Everybody has that strength. Do you want to have the strength that can be at least peaceful, calm when things aren't going well? Then you can be peaceful and calm all the time. You see? And so this is what the spiritual path is for. Now, when we speak of what is it to fail spiritually, Swamiji first of all gives us the answer that any failure is temporary. And so really I would say you really can't fail on the spiritual path. One disciple asked Master, will I ever leave the spiritual path? And Master said, how could you? Everyone in the world is on the spiritual path. In fact, Swamiji adds that Master saw that this man would leave the spiritual path, and in fact did later, but he wanted to encourage him. And so, whereas in life we can look at situations as either success or failure. There was an exam and you either passed or you failed, or there was an opportunity and you were either selected or you weren't selected. Using that word selected reminds me of one of our dear friends, Dharmarajan. He wanted to go on the Babaji's cave pilgrimage. We're actually going to be going there in April of next year. But this was our first time going, and he was trying to think of the right way to apply to his boss for leave. And so he wrote, I have been selected to go on pilgrimage to Babaji's cave. Oh, selected? Okay, well then congratulations. And so on. And so there was no selection. You just say, I want to go, you go. But anyway, so sometimes it is helpful to put things in a clarifying way. It was true, he was selected. He wasn't saying something untrue, but he was selected simply because he said he wanted to go. So that we can feel that either I passed the situation or I failed. I said something wrong and someone was hurt, and so I failed. So you learn early on that any kind of failure is temporary, maybe not in that situation because maybe it's moved on. But whatever mistake we have made, we can learn from. That's really what failure means, learning. It is how we learn. I mean, isn't it true that something that we do wrong stays with us sometimes much more deeply than something that we do right? But we don't want to keep rehashing it or keep saying, if I think about it long enough, maybe I can change history. No, but what we can say is, let this motivate me to do better. Let this motivate me to make a different choice than at the next opportunity. When I was young, that was a big realization that I had, that someone said, if you do it wrong now, it means you might do it right the next time. Next time? Will there be a next time? Is there a next time? I was so hung up on, no, that time did not go right. As if we are supposed to have 100% unblemished record, and then one mistake, blemish. Less than 100% means no right to exist. No, of course not. If that were true, no one would exist. And we get lots and lots and lots of chances. Good news, and that's also the bad news, is we get as many chances as we want. Really, it's not what is it to fail spiritually. We don't fail. It's just that it delays our union with God. So the real question is, what is it to delay spiritually? Why does that feel like failure? Because near the end of the path, you just want to be with God. And you realize that none of these other things really work. They work for a time. But even if they work, you find that something is nice, but it's God's joy behind that. As Master said, look to the giver behind each gift. So we should never think in terms of failure. And honestly, we should perhaps then only think in terms of success. As Swamiji pointed out when he was a young man trying to quit smoking, that he said whenever he went back to that habit, it took him about a year to get over it, out of sort of this compulsion of desire that brought it back, he said he always told himself, I haven't yet succeeded. And he said, therefore, every time he slipped, it was an affirmation of eventual success, rather than, oh, I failed again, and here I go, and what's the point in even trying? And so we should always tell ourselves when trying to change a habit or anything, I haven't yet succeeded. I'm getting closer. Another thing we can say is, I don't want this. Even if we're doing it, I don't want this. Even if we're shouting and we say, I don't want to be shouting, I am shouting. As a friend of mine said, there's so much shouting in my home. I said, oh, I'm so sorry. She said, I do most of the shouting. I said, oh, well, no, I have an idea then, But anyway, so when we find ourselves pulled to just say, I don't want this, because that withdraws energy from the habit. Because every habit is an expression of our desire. And so when we say, even while doing it, I don't want to, it starts to pull energy back from it. And so when we talk about failing on the spiritual path or succeeding, we should ask ourselves, well, in what ways? I mean, what does success or failure even look like? Well, in the discipleship vow, Master speaks of, the vow includes, it says, through daily meditation, service, and devotion. These things are mentioned, meditation, service, and devotion. The full line is, until at last, through daily meditation, service, and devotion, I unite my soul with thy infinite spirit. So these three things are things we can look at: meditation, service, and devotion. So what about meditation? The most important technique of meditation is to do your meditation. Just do the meditation. Hong Sa, yes. Om, fine. Kriya, silence, definitely. But just do it. Why? Because it will move you forward like nothing else can. And I say this not just quoting the masters, but quoting my own sort of desperate scratching experience, that I will have this realization about life and it will have cured all the mistakes I think in this way, and then a week later I'll be wondering, what was that realization again? Or I'll even remember, and then I'll write it down and read it, but it just won't have any power anymore, that the way it had at first. But whereas a meditation every morning, every evening, just it clears so much away. You can think of it as sort of restoring your IQ, if you want to, that we just sort of get a little bogged down, and then we meditate, and suddenly we find ourselves brightening up again. In a way, it's actually literally true, because so much of our energy goes out through our senses that when we then meditate, we're reversing the flow of energy, Master said. And so the energy not only no longer goes out the senses, but it goes up the spine and into the brain. And so the brain literally gets re-energized, recharged, and we find ourselves, coming back to life. But more than that, also, it brings peace to our hearts. Because it's one thing to say, my brain is awake again, but I still feel sad. It's nice when we can feel peace because we have some insight into the problem, or we can see why actually it wasn't that bad. Maybe. But sometimes it's just I feel peace because I feel peace. And I know the problem is there. It just doesn't bother me as much. And not because I'm ignoring it or denying it or saying it's a wonderful thing. It isn't. But because I don't feel threatened. Because I know, look, no matter what happens, I'm going to be fine. As Prasanna was reading, I am the immortal, changeless spirit at the heart of all mutation. At the heart of all change, I am unchanging. It's wonderful. Immortality is a wonderful affirmation. As I was saying not long ago, Master said he would laugh when people would pray for immortality, though. He said, what a silly prayer. Why pray for something you already have? There's nowhere we can go except back again. You see, so Swamiji said, don't be afraid of death, speaking of immortality. He said, think of how many times you've died already. Here we are, to laugh about it or cry about it, but we are here either way. So it's not something to worry about. You know where the fear of death comes from, Master said? It's that when the energy starts to leave the body, for a moment, we find that we can no longer breathe. And then in a few seconds, we discover that we don't need to breathe and that we're fine. But in those few seconds, he said, there is incredible panic that I need to breathe and I can't breathe. And that stays with us subconsciously, and that's why people fear death. It's fascinating the way he shared these things. I don't know if you've ever been sort of accidentally in a situation where you couldn't breathe, if you were underwater or if you were kids wrestling and somebody sat on your head, I'm speaking from personal experience. It happens. And then suddenly you find your whole body reacts trying to, get to air. And you sort of suddenly have all this strength. You can throw somebody off and all that just so that you can breathe again. But there is a real panic that comes. Well, Master said that's where it's from. So anyway, don't worry. You'll breathe as long as you need to. And then when you don't need to, you won't need to. And you'll still be fine. So not that, after satsang or anything like that. But so meditation. So just do your meditation. And that means that at 11:59 p.m., when you realize the whole day you haven't meditated, despite whatever plan you had made, to meditate then. And you say, yeah, but you see how tired I am? Fine. We're sometimes, we go through periods of life where we are always tired. So how is it any different? I'm tired on Tuesday, I'm tired on Friday, who cares? Better to meditate. It doesn't have to be long if the day has been a disaster, but have a minimum that you never go below and then slowly increase the minimum. So, but start with a minimum. No matter what, I will do 5 minutes. No matter what, I will do 30 seconds. No matter what. So that means when I realize I haven't done anything and I'm about to go to sleep, because that's your last chance for today, because today is defined as when you wake up again. So then you say, I'll do some right now. And it will bring so much change to your life. Then, of course, build it from there. Have your regular sadhana that you shoot for, Kriya Bandhs, 90 minutes a day, and to build from there over time to 2 hours and beyond. Master recommended 3 hours a day for those who were living with him and for those who are, who have had Kriya for some number of years. It's a good thing to aim for. He said for beginners, 45 minutes. And somebody heard him say this and said, oh, Master, 45 minutes for people just starting out is quite a lot. And Master said, it won't kill them. So, in fact, it'll save them, I would say. So anyway, sometimes we can be too shy or too worried why not? So, but the thing is, always enjoy your meditation or enjoy the fact that you did your meditation. Don't be critical. Don't judge it. Now, meditation, service, and devotion. Service. Of course, if you can come to the center, it's an easy way to serve Master, whether you can do something here at the center, or if you're just here. Being here is a service, actually, because you bring your energy, your smile into the room and you share it with others, and they share with you. But then even in whatever work we're doing throughout the day, think of it as, God, I'm serving you in the form of my family, in the form of my client, in the form of my colleague. It's you who I'm giving this to. You may not be able to give a flower, with every Excel printout to your boss, But you can think of it that way, just that, I'm helping. Everything we do should have a positive effect on other people's lives. We can just be purely, we say, well, I'm an accountant, so I balance the columns. How does that have a positive effect on people's lives? All I have to say is just think about when you have unbalanced columns. Sort of the heart rate goes up. So there's that. But remember, Lahiri Mahashai was an accountant. And, he gave Kriya Yoga to the world. He gave it the name Kriya Yoga. And he was an accountant. And, of course, his boss was calling him Ecstatic Babu and so on, because they could see there was something about this, accountant that was different from other accountants. But still, the thing is, there is nothing in this world that can't be made holy when we think of it in terms of God. So then devotion, which was, of course, the focus of the reading. Always just, if you're not sure of how to practice devotion, just tell God, I love you. And God, I want to feel more of your love. Because in our lives, everybody's looking for love. Everybody's looking to feel loved. And many times people will feel unloved in a particular direction. Unloved by you, or unloved by this person. And really, though, it's not that person. It's that our heart has, as someone described it, a God-shaped hole. Only God can fit that hole. You can have all the love in the world from everybody you want love from, and still it won't be satisfying. It would be nice to have more love, and I would say on a human level, it's good to seek friendship, because love comes to us through friends. And that's a very good thing to do. Sometimes our friends are among our family members. Sometimes they're part of our spiritual family, or they're part of our soul family. That's just karma. But you can always have friends. In fact, that's another aspect of the spiritual path that's mentioned in the vow sort of indirectly. It says, I will join my energies to those of my Guru Bhais. And so that's satsang, spending time with each other. It's very helpful to be with others who follow the same path, who follow the same guru. It's very strengthening. And because not only we feel their enthusiasm, but we can also share our enthusiasm and not just be met with blank looks. As Swamiji's own brother said to him, it all may be true what you're saying, I'm just not interested. And that's how many people are, and that's okay. They have that right. But you sort of get, bored all the time just, saying things to people who are not interested, and then not saying things to people because they're not interested. It can feel lonely. Because when we have enthusiasm, naturally we want to share that with others. So again, satsang is very strengthening on the spiritual path. So you could look at those sort of four things, meditation, devotion, service, satsang, and say, how am I doing in all those? Not critically, not saying, where am I succeeding and failing? No, I'm not saying that. But look at those as sort of ingredients in a recipe or vitamins, and say, if I'm a little short on one of them, let me just add a little energy to that and see if it doesn't just freshen up my day or freshen up my week. It's that simple. Again, never feel like we're not measuring up and we have to, as Swamiji said, many devotees think that they have to behave perfectly or else they get it in the neck. And he said either that or that they think they're only going to reach heaven sort of skidding across the marble floor. Just barely make it. Sort of like, everybody is acceptable except you. Well, okay, fine. But just this once, It's not like that at all. You see? So we want to, if that were the case, God is, as Swamiji continued, he's going to have to adjust his sights down to an appropriate level if he wants anyone to be around, anyone to be in heaven. So what we want to do then is think of what can I do more? And how do we know we need to do more? As I've talked about sometimes, you have a sort of spiritual progress evaluation device, and usually in every home. It is called a mirror. And you look in the mirror, and what do you see? There's a problem, okay? If you can look in the mirror and smile, or you can see Divine Mother, you can smile, just check yourself. That's how you know. If I'm smiling, it's okay. If I'm not smiling, problem. And should I think about what you can try, but why not chant and meditate and see if you don't just feel better? A lot of things just sort of burn off. Some karmas we do have to face. Some misunderstandings we do have to work out. We can't just burn them off that simply. But we will work them out more quickly and more easily if we do also burn them off in the fires of concentration, in meditation, in the fire of devotion. Why does the fire of devotion burn away all desires? Because we're just so happy. We feel such a connection that then these other things just don't matter that much. Maybe they go their way, our way. Maybe they don't go our way. It's okay. Sometimes if you're like trying to get a parking space and someone else gets the parking space, you could say, well, I in my oneness with all have gotten that parking space in the form of that other person. I am so happy to have that parking space. Now I'll go find another one. But, just rather than see everything as sort of a division, try to feel a connection. Be happy for others. That helps us. That's the why we do it. Send prayers. Pray for others because it will also help you. Do it generously. Don't say, I'm praying for you, because it's helping me, actually. No, it should be sincere. But it does help us also. So, again, look at our lives with a kind eye. First of all, we should all celebrate. We're still on the path. We're still here. We're still going. And so there's a lot to celebrate. There's one other ingredient that's implied in the discipleship vow, and by the fact of its very name. And that is, remember also the Guru. Because first and foremost, I have found over the years, in addition to all these things, that connection with the Guru helps really above all. Master said 25% of the spiritual path is our effort, 25% is the Guru's effort on our behalf, 50% is the grace of God. I found more than anything the grace of God came to me through the Guru, comes to me through the Guru. If it comes through the Guru. So the Guru really is helping access that 75%. So we do our part, but we've seen over the years that people who had an easy relationship with the Guru, which is to say with Master, and with Master through Swamiji, had a very easy time on the spiritual path. And those who held themselves a little bit separate or just sort of said, well, that's all fine, but I also have to make up my own mind, they often struggled because they weren't fully open to the help they could have received. And so I'm not saying that thinking of any of you, so please don't think that way. But the fact is we can always be more open. We can always be more accepting. What does that mean? In the case of, for example, Swamiji, Master through Swamiji, we have 149 books of Master's teachings, directly his teachings and applied, his teachings applied in different areas. So, if we haven't yet read all 149 books, 148 maybe, there's one more. There's more to read. And by the time you've read the 149th, the first one, you're beginning to say, now what was that again? So start again. It would be very helpful to read some words of Swamiji or Master every day. It would be very helpful to listen to Swamiji's voice, or even better to see him speak on YouTube. Someone was telling us in the level 4 class yesterday, every day I listen to Master's voice. I'm not sure if it was while commuting or driving to work, but it sort of seemed that I wondered if that's what she meant. But in any case, she said, every day I listen to his voice, twice. And it just helps me because there are things that he says that go in more deeply the more I hear them, and I really enjoy hearing his voice. Because remember, the Guru can give to you more than you have. When we just sit and think, we're giving to ourselves what we already have. When we listen, when we read, when we watch, you can think of it superficially as education. And it is that. That's not nothing. But it's also vibration. It's also spiritual power, as Master quoted from the Bible all the time. To those who received him, to them gave he power to become the sons of God. I would say the daughters of God, the children of God. But he gives you that power. That's really the only function the Guru has. Is that you could say, what does the Guru do? Does he teach? Well, yes. But some Gurus are silent, maunis. They never speak. So how can they be gurus? I mean, just imagine you go to your, math class and the teacher comes in and sits down. And you say, what's going on? Oh, he's broadcasting the mathematical thoughts for us to pick up. You could say, is there any other class I could join? You see, so how could some silent person be the teacher? Because he is not just broadcasting thoughts, but vibration, spiritual power. And many times we found with Swamiji that that's what he was sharing with us. He himself said that when Master was speaking on even sort of mundane topics like repairing holes in the driveway, that Swamiji could feel power coming from him and that it was uplifting him. I think it was Swami Kebalananda, an autobiography of a yogi, said when Lahiri Mahashai, even when he was speaking on non-spiritual topics, I still felt that some power had been transmitted to me and changed me. That's how we felt in Swamiji's presence all the time. It was electrifying. It was so uplifting. I was amazed the first time I was in his physical presence. I felt like there was a power filling the whole room, and I had never felt that before in my life. It was just sort of like, it felt almost like a bomb had gone off, of some spiritual energy bomb. I don't know. It was just so uplifting. And that continued in my time of knowing him. But speaking of this, Prasanna reading this made me think about something in my own life where Divine Mother is speaking to Master, to Yoganandaji, saying, "Thy Master cometh today." And the voice was there, but the Habu priest didn't hear it. Those words were not spoken for the benefit of that foolish one, it says. So I was thinking of a situation like that where Dharmini and I were wanting to ask Swamiji something. Maybe we were wanting to ask his permission to do something. And so we sat down and we wrote an email together and we sent it. And then she said, let's meditate. And so we meditated. And at the end of the meditation, she said, I don't think Swamiji wants it. And I checked, is there an email? There's no email. There's no proof of that. I think he does want it because I want it. And then later we met Swamiji about a week later, and he said, I got your letter, and I'm sorry I didn't reply. And he smiled at us, and then he looked at her and said, I think you got my answer in your meditation. And she smiled at him, and I looked at the floor. And so, because he was telling us openly, I replied. And then we found over the years that sometimes that would be the case. You would write Swamiji an email, and then you would meditate. You would you would feel the answer. Then later he would write and confirm the answers. You have to realize, are these things actually real, or are we just making them up? I answered for him and said, yes, wonderful. Anything you think is always right. No, you have to find out. I mean, many times you would know the answer to your question because you wouldn't get a reply. I can't tell you the number of emails saying, Swamiji, I've got this red-hot idea. Silence. Okay. I take it by your silence that you were overwhelmed with the brilliance of my idea? No. Whereas any time we really needed Swamiji's help, his replies were always instant. Sometimes, 20 minutes later, he might be on the other side of the planet, even shorter than that. Sometimes instantaneous, writing back and forth. Whether to say, I agree, or saying, I caution you. So whenever we needed help, he was always there. And he made that point too, that saints, he said, may sometimes seem distant, out of reach, but when you need them, they are there. And who could that be said of more truly than the Guru? So that's also a very simple way to succeed on the spiritual path, is keep the Guru close and closer, and be willing to be a disciple. Be willing to receive the Guru's discipline, which is to say, the Guru's training. To learn, to change according to what the Guru has said to do. It's really that simple. And to learn more about the Guru than you know right now. Through the books, through the recordings, through the mixing with others who were with him, learning again from, in this case, there are so many teachers who were trained by Swami Kriyananda in Master's ways that you can also watch their talks and learn from them, and they're still here. but I don't know if we'll be able to say that in 100 years. You say, well, we may not be around ourselves in 100 years to say it. But still, I don't want to make the point too dramatically, but it's already been made for me. This year we lost two, well, not this year, but within about a year's time, we lost two dear souls to the infinite, Sevaji and Anandiji. And it's just, it's hard for me to really feel that they're gone, partly because I haven't gone back to Ananda village yet to really witness that they are not there. But still, it's luckily many of us had a chance to connect with Anandiji over the years, and not so much with Sevaji unless you went to Ananda village and met her there. But they're with Swamiji, they're with Master, and that's all fine. But still, on a human level, I miss them. And so many of you went, for example, to the Bangalore retreat to be with Jyotishji and Deviji, Haridasji and Romaji and our other spiritual family, and take advantage of those opportunities because they're not infinite. And taking them can give you so much more than you might think. In other words, we gain it gives us a big boost that lasts quite a long time. And then we have the next opportunities that come up again. And so, but that can happen. You don't have to just go on pilgrimage or just go on retreat, but do things to sort of make an occasion out of, have a special occasion with yourself. To have, maybe you spend an hour or two on the weekend just being with Master. Maybe you're quietly talking with him, or maybe you're writing a letter. You can write a letter to Master and then you can write a reply from Master. That can be helpful. But try to make it from Master, but still, and make it encouraging. If it's not encouraging, it's not from Master. So when you hear that voice in your head, that's not his voice. Master is always on your side. That's what Swamiji said. In every struggle against delusion, my Guru is always on my side. And he's always on your side. Okay, so let's do what we can, finishing out this year on a high note, and then resolving to love God, to merge in God even more in the next year to come.